The growing pervasiveness of evil at home and abroad begs the following questions. Does evil exist apart from the human soul? Is it a virus that hangs in the air, or must it be embodied to exist? Is evil increasing in the world? Is evil expanding? Are the depths of depravity reaching new lows today? Are we seeing new expressions of depravity that we have seen in the past? Is the enemy upping his game? Is he intensifying his influence? I simply offer my limited perspective at this point. Evil does not exist apart from a symbiotic relationship with sin. Freedom of choice exists before humans. The exercise of choice or free will has consequences, and evil is one of those consequences. 1/3 of the angels fell with Lucifer when he challenged the authority of God. Adam and Eve had free will in the garden, the exercise of which resulted in expulsion from the garden and shame. They are progenitors of original sin that every human being inherited, a predisposition to live our lives independently from God and a standard for morality. So does evil exist apart from the human soul? Is it a virus that hangs in the air, or must it be embodied to exist? In my understanding of Scripture and theology, evil does not exist apart from a host, created beings, including angels. Humans sin, and humans have the potential of great good and jaw-dropping evil. Evil is not a virus, but a part of our spiritual DNA, as is the fact that we were created in the image of God, bearing in our person the character of God with His communicable attributes. J.I. Packer clarifies what is meant by the image of God. He says, and I quote, "When God made man, He communicated to him qualities corresponding to his moral attributes. This is what the Bible means when it tells us that God made man, meaning both men and women, in His own image. Namely, that God made man and woman a free spiritual being, a responsible moral agent with powers of choice and action, able to commune with Him and respond to Him, and by nature good, truthful, holy, upright, in a word, godly. The moral qualities which belong to the divine image were lost at the fall. God's image in man has been universally defaced, for all mankind has in one way or another lapsed into ungodliness. But the Bible tells us that now, in the fulfillment of His plan of redemption, God is at work in Christian believers to repair His ruined image by communicating these qualities to them afresh. This is what the Scripture means when it says that Christians are being renewed in the image of Christ, 2 Corinthians 3:18, and of God, Colossians 3, verse 10. The next question is evil increasing in the world? Is evil expanding? Well, given the fact that sin and evil demands a host, then it stands to reason that as the population of humanity grows, so does the expanse of evil. Some scholars suggest that the destruction of the Tower of Babel was in part due to the prospect of evil and sin accelerating when concentrating in one place. Much like sound traveling further and faster in water than it does in air because the molecules are spaced more closely in proximity. GotQuestions.org describes the situation. Quote, "The Tower of Babel is described in Genesis 11, verses 1 through 9. After the flood, God commanded humanity to increase in number and fill the earth, Genesis 9:1. Humanity decided to do the exact opposite. Quote, "Then they said, 'Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves and not be scattered over the face of the whole earth,'" unquote, Genesis 11:4. Humanity decided to build a great city and all congregate there. They decided to build a gigantic tower as a symbol of their power to make a name for themselves, Genesis 11:4. This tower is remembered as the Tower of Babel. In response, God confused the languages of humanity so that they could no longer communicate with each other, Genesis 11:7. The result was that people congregated with other people who spoke the same language and then went together and settled in other parts of the world, Genesis 11, verses 8 and 9. Now, God confused the languages at the Tower of Babel to enforce his command for humanity to spread throughout the entire world. The flood preceded this event and suggests that when humanity is concentrated in one place, sin is rampant. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, Scripture says, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually, Genesis 6:5. Accordingly, men are wicked in their hearts imagine evil. When it says, and now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do, simply means that man would continually come together in disobedience and rebellion without restraint of wickedness, unquote. Now, when sin goes unabated, its shrill voice grows louder. As the depths of depravity here's the next question, are the depths of depravity reaching new lows today? Are we seeing new expressions of depravity than we have seen in the past? The depths of depravity have already been reached. Take a look at what depravities were engaged in the Old Testament. For instance, human sacrifice was part of the worship of Moloch, a Canaanite god, Leviticus 18:5. According to biblical research, Moloch worship included child sacrifice or passing children through the fire. It's believed that the idols of Moloch were giant metal statues of a man with a bull's head. Each image had a hole in the abdomen and possibly outstretched forearms that made a kind of a ramp to the hole. A fire was lit in or around the statue. Babies were placed in the statue's arm or in the hole. When a couple sacrificed their firstborn, they believed that Moloch would ensure financial prosperity for the family and future children. It may seem like depravity has found new depths today, but I would suggest that examples of depravity are more widely known because our communication channels today make it more possible to hear about such depravity more widely. The intensity and depth haven't changed much over the years. Maybe more novel ways have been created to exercise these atrocities. Here's the next question. Is the enemy upping his game? Is he intensifying his influence? So finally, one can easily conclude that the efforts of the evil one and his minions are increasing in intensity. He has upped his game. One scholar suggested we're living in the new dark age. The world is getting darker. The liberal notion that the world is getting better has been pretty much discredited given what's happening across the globe even today. We're hurtling to a climatic end so graphically described in Scripture. It may not happen in yours or my lifetime, yet the enemy sees it coming. His desire is to take as many with him as possible. His plan is to discredit God through the lives of those who claim to know Christ but live hypocritical and incongruous lives in opposition to what they say they believe. Satan is called the great opposer and adversary of our King Jesus Christ. He's the prince of this earthly world, the tempter, 1 Thessalonians 3:5, Beelzebub, Matthew 12:24, the wicked one, Matthew 13:19 and 38, the ruler of this world, John 12:31, the god of this age, 2 Corinthians 4:4, Belial, 2 Corinthians 6:15, the prince of the power of the air, Ephesians 2:2, and the accuser of brethren, Revelation 12:10. Satan's influence in worldly affairs is also clearly revealed. John 12:31. His various titles reflect his control of the world system, the ruler of this world, the god of this age, and the prince of the power of the air. The Bible declares that the whole world lies under the sway of the wicked one. He might temporarily sway, but his day is coming and has already been declared and set. Evil will not ultimately triumph. God will. Whose side will you be on?